Okay, so now we're going to start talking about the cranial nerves, and we're going to talk about cranial nerves 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. We're skipping 5. You'll see why in a minute. So just to remind ourselves, this is the exact same slide that you saw in last week's lecture. So the cranial nerves, you can kind of think of them as VAP nerves because they don't go in and out through the spinal cord. They directly go to the brain, right? So they're allowed right into the C-suite. They are bringing nerve fibers or axons either directly into the brain or directly out of the brain, or a combination thereof. So there are 12 pairs of them. We're going to learn all 12, some in some depth and some pretty just surface level, and we give them both Roman numerals and names. You've already learned two. So when we did Introduction to Cranial Nerves last week, you learned that the olfactory nerve is cranial nerve 1, and you learned that because we were able to see it on the sheep brains and the human brains. And so just a reminder that that is for your sense of smell. So it is actually a sensory nerve only, which is interesting. When we learned about those peripheral nerves, all of those were mixed nerves that had both sensory axons and motor axons. But this one is a sensory nerve only has sensory axons in it. We also learned about the optic nerve, which is cranial nerve 2, so Roman numeral number 2, and that is for vision. And here it is kind of coming back from the eyeball, coming directly into the brain. And that's going to do some interesting things that we'll learn about when we do that chapter. And so this one too is just a sensory nerve, sensory axons only, and it's all for our sense of vision, bringing all of those signals from the retina inside our eyeball back to the brain. So this is the chart from the Hedges textbook, and so we can already give a checkbook. Cranial nerve 1 and cranial nerve 2, we've already got it. So now we're going to talk about 3, 4, and 6, and we're going to talk about them together. So the reason we're going to talk about 3, 4, and 6 together is all 3 of them are motor nerves only, and all 3 of them are all about the eyes. So our eyes are pretty complicated, so we have a bunch of nerves that are going to be doing things. Now it turns out that cranial nerve 3, called the oculomotor nerve. So there's a hint, right? Oculo is in like ocular of the eye, motor. The oculomotor nerve is going to help move the eyeball. So we have muscles that move our eyeballs in different directions, right? And so some of the axons from the oculomotor nerve are going to go to those muscles, but it also does some of the cool things inside the eyeball, like constricting your pupil and making it small, and pulling on these other, contracting these other muscles to change the shape of the lens inside your eyeball for when you have to look at something that's really close. So the oculomotor nerve is like a big deal. It's got a lot going on for the eyes. Then we have cranial nerve number 4, which is the trochlear nerve, and number 6, which is the abducens nerve, and both of them just contribute to moving the eyeball. So they each just supply one muscle that pulls your eyeball in one way. So they're not nearly as interesting, and we'll spend some more time with these when we talk about our sense of vision a little bit later in the course, just a couple weeks actually. All right. So let's look at where those are on the brain. So I've tried to gray out the other structures so that we can see them. So oculomotor nerve, cranial nerve number 3 is in yellow here. So we've got one right here. Why is that not showing up? Oh, there we go. One there and one right here. So, right, one on each side. There's your oculomotor. Then trochlear, which is number 4, are these little pink guys right near it. And then abducens, number 6, are these purple guys back here. So we've got these 3 different nerves. You can see them again. Here is kind of a side view where you can see they're all coming out from part of the brain. And you can see actually they're coming out from the brain stem. And you look back at the other view and be like, oh yeah, that is the brain stem. So you've got your oculomotor nerve here kind of in the middle, sending fibers to muscles as well as the inside of the eyeball. Trochlear nerve up here, sending fibers to muscles up top, and abducens nerve here, sending signals to muscles on the side of the eyeball. So you can also see here there's a little cutaway into the inside of the eyeball, and there's that lens. And this muscle pulls on the lens to change its shape, and that's one of those things, one of those extra things that the oculomotor nerve does. So again, we'll learn more about that when we talk about vision, but here's just a little introduction. So we've already done 1 and 2, and now you just learned that oculomotor nerve number 3 moves the eyeball and constricts the pupil and changes shape of the lens, and that trochlear nerve and abducens nerve just move the eyeball in specific directions. So that's it for part 1 of cranial nerves. So we now know nerves 1 through 6, with the exception of 5. We're going to talk about that one in our next section.